Oh, hello, and welcome to another Today's Decay, where we celebrate births and beginnings of everything important since the dawn of time. Uh, Today, August 17th. Well, just to give you some backstory here, for those of you just tuning in, um, the thought here is that every day kind of blends into each other, right? We're either working from home, not working at all, and still probably spending most of our time at home, or being an essential worker. And then life is its own nightmarish situation, I suppose. Right, so the thought here is going through history and finding exciting things that started on this day and either spending some time with it for a first time or revisiting it. Like, for instance, on this day in 1893, John Bram was born, a really great Hollywood director. I read about him in high school and couldn't find any of his films at that point, and those would include The Lodger, which this here is a photo play of. See here, this is Laird Krieger playing a Jack the Ripper character. This story was actually adapted multiple times, including earlier by Hitchcock, but this is so good. I think John Bram is like 20th Century Fox's version of Val Lewton, so this is like a classic horror film, but with a real film noir aspects to it. The difference being Val Lewton had like no budget to work with and used that to his advantage at RKO, and at 20th Century Fox, John Bram had a lot of money to work with, and you can tell because all of his sets are these great London fog-shrouded streets that are just like glistening with rain, and these like crane shots that just keep going, and like it's great stuff. So he made The Lodger, Laird Krieger. It was so successful he was able to adapt Patrick Hamilton's novel Hangover Square, which basically reads as like a sequel, as if like Jack the Ripper didn't well, I won't tell you what happens at the end of The Lodger, but it reads as if it could have been a sequel almost in production value and actors and everything, because Laird Krieger's in both of them. And it was Laird Krieger's birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I failed to mention, so what happens in Hangover Square, it was shot out of sequence, so he was a actor who really desperately wanted to be almost like a romantic lead at the time, but was cast as like the heavy, pun intended, a big guy who was like starving himself to try to seem like more like the romantic lead. And in Hangover Square, it was his last movie. When what I didn't mention was it was his last movie because he died at like the very end of the production from pretty much starvation. I don't know if he was bulimic, anorexic, something like that. But because it's shot out of order, he'll walk off frame in one scene and, fill his clothes, and then in the next scene, like walk right into the next room, and his clothes will be like draping off of him because he was like dying on camera, basically. That wasn't it for John Bram, though. At 20th Century Fox, he also did The Undying Monster, which is a really, I guess, psychological werewolf movie. It was a book by Jesse Douglas Kirish. Kirish? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. While this is a repro dust jacket, that is original 1937, I think, artwork. 36. This is Philip Allen published these books. This is part of the like Creeps series in England. They did like hardcover, like Weird Tale type stories. I love like how primitive this looks, right? Could almost be like skateboard art or like some primitive 80s punk band artwork or something like that. Yeah. What else? That wasn't it for John Bram. He continued 1954, I want to say, guessing. Early to mid-50s, he did The Mad Magician, which was a Vincent Price vehicle, and was really on the strength of Vincent Price's success in House of Wax, which really is what solidified him. You could say the wax hardened. And The Mad Magician was his follow-up, and they got John Bram to direct him in it. And this was like, Vincent Price is now officially a horror actor. And it's really a weird movie. It's in 3D. And I saw it at the Film Forum a bunch of years ago. And I thought it was really weird because it's basically like a greatest hits collection of John Bram scenes from his 20th Century Fox stuff the Lodger, Hangover Square, and I don't think Undying Monster, but maybe. But definitely the first two. There's like this whole Guy Fawkes scene that's like right out of, I think, Hangover Square. Like it's weird. It's weird. It's almost like he's out of ideas, or somebody's just telling him, "Oh, just recycle." I don't know. And then he moved on and worked with, I think, the Alfred Hitchcock Presents television series, as well as some of the most iconic Twilight Zone episodes. So, like, Time Enough at Last was his. We have Time Enough at Last to celebrate John Brom. And, even more timely, on this day in 1960, George Powell's The Time Machine premiered, starring Rod Taylor and Yvette Mimieux. Maybe pronounced that right, wrong, I don't know. And a whole world of Morlocks. I love this movie. It's great, right? What's not to like? Same could be said for Black Sabbath, Mario Bava's horror anthology, starring Boris Karloff, among many others. Premiered on this day, 1962. That A Drop of Water story will forever be one of the most frightening pieces of film, I'd say. It's interesting because depending on where it was released, they chopped it up differently. They put it in different orders, but it doesn't matter. It's still Bava. It's still Karloff. It's still fantastic. That's it today. Very film-centric, right? Or book-centric, I guess. Anyway, I have time enough at last to explore some of these novels. I think I'm going to go for The Undying Monster. And you? Do what you must. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.